That's what the National Labor Relations Act was. If we remove that, we will be going back to a place of increased disruption to production, increased violence, and it's not going to be good for anybody, frankly.
Let's take a look at this Whole Foods situation. Whole Foods workers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania won a union. Very, very excited about that. The first Whole Foods workers in the country to win a union. But now Whole Foods is trying to have the results of that election set aside because there is no quorum at the NLRB. And so this is what we were talking about and what we have been talking about the real world ramifications and the degradations of people's rights on the job when the systems that administer labor law are attacked and degraded. Now, I do not think that you have to, I do not think it is the case, actually, that you have to have a quorum on the National Labor Relations Board in D.C. to be able to certify election results, because those can be certified, particularly when there are no challenges to the election or to the conduct of the election. You can just have the regional director certify those results and the regional staff at the NLRB certify those results. And so I am hopeful that the NLRB and federal courts, if it's appealed to the federal courts, reject this attempt to set aside the election of a union, the election of workers to form a union at Whole Foods in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But I'm not so sure, because additionally, the National Labor Relations Board is no longer defending itself against claims in court that its structure is unconstitutional. And so it is, we're going to be in a totally different place if the entire American regime of labor relations is set aside. And Mark was talking about in the chat earlier about, oh, you can just get a lawyer. You can just get a lawyer if you're fired. I don't know anything. Well, even the minimum recourses that we have are at risk, including, Mark, your own, because when the Postal Service, which is kind of organization is strange. It's like a corporation of the federal government. And so it is governed by the National Labor Relations Act, despite being a federal, government kind of entity. But anyway, it's governed by the National Labor Relations Act. Well, guess what, Mark? If the Postal Service, which they would like to do, if the Postal Service is attacked in such a way and they become even more belligerently ignoring of the law than they are now, then even people like you who have protections will not have these legal protections that exist under the law if Trump and Elon Musk have their way, right? And that is why it is important for people like us, even where we disagree on other political issues, but like us, when we recognize an attack on the working class, we need to stand up against it. And so the unions are obviously going to be fighting this kind of stuff. But if the NLRB and the National Labor Relations Act is completely dissolved, we're going to be in a totally different labor relations regime in this country. And we're going to need to be prepared to engage in what were previously illegal actions, potentially, like work stoppages or strikes or things like that. Because ultimately, that is where all of our protections derive from anyways. Why was the National Labor Relations Act instituted? It was instituted because there was too much disruption to production. Workers were being too liberal with their use of the strike weapon, and also the public did not like seeing their coworkers being violently attacked by the state. And so they said, we need an orderly process for this. We need to, kind of get violence out of our labor relations regime. And so that's what the National Labor Relations Act was. If we remove that, we will be going back to a place of increased disruption to production, increased violence, undoubtedly, and it's not going to be good for anybody, frankly. So it's very, 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 very concerning.
Hey, 5 seconds, just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Did you have anything that you wanted to say on the Whole Foods stuff?
Well, I think it's a big crisis when, the entire legal system that we've operated under since the 30s is under threat. And I think you're right to point to the strike as, it's our best path. It's our power. It's where we can have leverage. The problem is, a strike is very difficult to organize. It takes a lot of work. It's risky, right? You're asking people to step out and take a risk. And a lot of our unions have not been striking on a regular basis, right? Strike activity is not something that is anywhere close to the level it was in the 1930s when we won this act. But I really appreciate you bringing up, that history, because we did see a massive upsurge in the 30s of workers organizing other workers. And that is ultimately the solution. To the point that Jeremy was even making earlier, before he wrapped, was the solidarity. We have to build class-wide solidarity. Working people, the vast majority of us, have to unite around our common interest and against our common enemies. And unfortunately, there are a lot of working people who are fooled, who, are consuming propaganda, believe that billionaires and oligarchs and bosses and politicians are, their friend or somehow representing them, which is really unfortunate. But I try to remember that literally billions of dollars are spent trying to confuse people and divide people. And we see the way in which race and gender, religion, and other aspects are used to divide and conquer the working class, because we are the most diverse, right? I mean, just look at it. Bosses, the owners, the rich capitalists tend to be less diverse than the rest of us who actually work for them, who create this labor, who power this economy through our labor. And then through our consumption. So it is going to be really, really important that working people don't fall for these these tricks. Solidarity is the answer, not bigotry. And even folks who look different from me, talk different from me, think different from me, if you're a worker, I got your back, and I hope you'll have mine. Because ultimately we have to live up to that principle that an injury to one is an injury to all. And whether it's, immigrants or trans folks, unions, anyone else that's under threat, we have to have each other's back, and we have to help each other and look out for one another. It's very disheartening when you see folks who have fallen for the propaganda. But all we can do is keep growing our networks, keep having one-on-one conversations, keep building relationships with folks, and then struggling together and taking collective action together, because the collective action is ultimately all we're going to have. If we can't rely on the government, if we can't rely on the laws, we can't rely on the courts, right? Collective action is going to be our path forward. So it's very strange times we're in, very difficult times we're in. Lots coming at us from every direction. So I just encourage people to find the things that you can do to make a positive difference. Find the opportunities in your life to expand your network, to get linked up with organizations doing good work, to get more involved in your union, if you don't have a union yet, don't be scared by what's happening in DC and think that you shouldn't organize. Now is always the time to organize. If you don't have a union yet, you need one.
Right.
So, and that's the energy we have to bring.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.